Hello, welcome to the latest edition of the Coaching Conversation. I'm Graham Wiley, and in this series we meet with fellow coaches, business owners, business leaders from all around the world who share with us their experience in helping develop either their own organisations or their people, or helping their clients do exactly that. It's a great privilege for me to meet these people. Many of them I don't know. Some of them are old friends and we've worked together for many, many years. Hope you find this edition interesting. Hope you find it useful and hopefully might even be a bit of fun. So this is it, the latest edition of the Coaching Conversation. Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of the Coaching Conversation. And this time I'm joined by my great friend, Ffrancon Williams, and we're going to talk about transitioning from being a chief executive into some form of portfolio advisor, which Ffrancon has done very successfully over the last 2 years, and he's going to share with us his experience of doing exactly that. So Ffrancon, first of all, can you introduce yourself to the audience, explain to them what you used to do when you had a proper job and what you're doing now.
Thanks, Graham, and thanks for the invitation. And hi, everybody. So I'm Ffrancon Williams. I used to be a group chief executive of a fairly large housing association based here in lovely North Wales. And almost 2 years ago, I stepped down from that role, effectively retiring, to pursue some other interests. So that was a very demanding role, as those sort of roles are. Went through a lot of change, built the business up, started developing new properties and refinanced, and all the sort of wonderful things you get involved with a growing business, and thoroughly enjoyed it. But you come to a point where you seek other things in the time that you've got. So since stepping down, I've become a non-exec for two businesses. One is a professional consultancy business called Colmert. They're based here in North Wales, but have offices elsewhere in Manchester and down in Kent and Sheffield. And they do planning, engineering, project management, and they also have an environment. So a multidisciplinary consultancy, very interesting. Employ about 50 people, significant turnover for their size of business, and have some great ambitions to grow, which I'll probably touch on a bit later. So that's one of the roles. The other role is with a local charity called Bwyd Da Môn, which I'll have to translate for you, which is Good Food Anglesey, and this is a lovely charity. Which effectively repurposes surplus food from the supermarkets and from the distributors, and use that redistribution to address poverty on the island. So that's a lovely, lovely little charity which I'm involved with. I'm also a board advisor for a startup called Wool Insulation Wales, which is another lovely little business who are repurposing wool from wool clip and using that for insulation in the construction business. So they've started with loft insulation, which is a lovely, sustainable product, very high spec product actually, with very few. Well, there's no additives, so it's a very natural and sustainable product. And hoping now to break into with other product lines into other construction insulation materials. So that's very, very exciting. And that's more of a board advisor rather than a non-exec role. And the other thing I do is, on the professional front anyway, is a bit of executive coaching and career advice. So, and that's really rewarding too. So those are my professional interests. And then on the leisure front, I'm a very keen motorbiker. So I do a lot of that, and I ride for the blood bikes here in North Wales now. And I also, one of my great passions is to drive heavy goods vehicles. So whenever time allows and opportunities present itself, I do that as well. So yeah, so that's me, everyone.
So the truth is, don't have time to go and have a proper job anymore, do you?
I couldn't go. There's an old adage, isn't there? I don't know how I managed to do what I used to do when I was working, because I probably achieve less now at home with all these things I'm involved with than I did when I was in a senior role. And you'll hear that. You'll hear that. I don't know where the time goes.
Yeah. So there was a moment when you step back, you moved away from corporate life. And what were you feeling at that time? I mean about the decision to leave. I mean about the future of becoming a portfolio advisor. What was your mindset? How did you feel just about then?
I think that it's a transition when you step down. And I was very conscious and felt it that you needed something in a professional sense to stimulate you and to occupy you, I suppose. But also, I felt that you've gone through quite a lot in your working career um, and achieved. I'm proud to say, proud of my achievements. Um, so I also felt that I wasn't quite done, and that there must be a place where uh, one would hope that you could perhaps transfer those learnings to others. And portfolio advisor, non-exec coaching, that sort of activity was kind of an obvious place to transfer that. I was keen. I've worked in housing for social housing for the last 20 plus 25 years, maybe a bit longer. Um, so whilst there are housing roles and I'm still keen in housing, I was keen to see whether I could transfer some of my experience into perhaps other sectors because I was spent quite a lot of my career in the private sector too. So yeah, so that those were some of the feelings and thought processes that were going on at the time.
When you finished, did you already have these roles lined up, or did you need to go and find them afterwards?
I had one of them lined up, um, if lined up is the appropriate term, because I think also I felt that the match needed to be right. So whilst I was pursuing roles, I think you do go through, it's almost like trying for jobs in that some will suit you and some won't. And I think you've got to be a strong individual to be honest with yourself and say, well, yeah, I do need XYZ to fill my time and to occupy and stimulate me, but you need to be strong enough to say, well, yeah, but I want to be doing rewarding stuff for me where the match is one that you feel comfortable with. So I did spend some time to to get that match right, you know.
And so, was there a feeling of doubt or concern that perhaps you wouldn't be successful in filling the void at that moment, or was it just knuckle down and crack on and it'll come?
I think it was the latter. I think it will come. I think that, as a I think you I think you have a certain confidence in your own ability without being too arrogant. And then having given it some thought as to what sort of roles you think would suit you, then I think it was quite important to pursue that because you have the time now. Uh, you don't per se need to fill your time, if that makes sense,
Yeah,
because you've made the transition to release more time for yourself. So you can take time. And I think it pays then if you get the right match. It's almost a bit like a marriage, isn't it?
yeah.
Sometimes you have to wait for the right partner to come along. Um,
When you were seeking the new roles, were you using agencies? Were you using your network? Where did they come from?
both, I think. I think there's lots of places you can go and look for non-exec roles, and I learned a lot about some of those and portfolio advisor roles where you wouldn't ordinarily in housing come across those opportunities. So there's obviously the housing field, which I'm very familiar with and know exactly where to look if that's doesn't come across too arrogant, but you've worked in the sector, how that works and where to look. But there were other more private sector type opportunities, which was a new place for me to look. So I enjoyed that process, and enjoyed the process where you do apply for those roles and the differences between what they look for compared to perhaps what somebody in a social housing field would look for. And I also use my network. Um, I think it's important that you do that and that you maintain the network, the key contacts that you've got in your network, and keep those warm. But also, you enjoy your network, don't you? Those are your network with.
Yeah,
Usually, you enjoy their company, so that
that's
wasn't a burden by any stretch of the imagination.
no. And the executive coaching clients, what, do they come through word of mouth or?
Yeah, they come through word of mouth, and I obviously have a LinkedIn profile. I do get some inquiries through that, and again, I think that's a hugely rewarding thing to do, and the match there has to be right. I have to feel that my experiences can add value to those individuals, and also I think it's fair to say that there needs to be a genuineness from the client's perspective that they are willing to be coached.
Yeah,
As what I guess just to try and explain that is that people out there will know that coaching is out there as a service and may think that that will sort whatever the issues of the day that they're grappling with. And of course, that is partly true, but unless the individual is prepared to be open and I suppose prepared to take a look at themselves, if that's the way of expressing it, then the coaching won't perhaps achieve the outcomes that they serve, so or that they desire. So there needs to be a match there as well.
yeah. You can't coach somebody who doesn't want to be helped. You can't coach
Yeah,
somebody who doesn't want to change. I mean, that's just
exactly.
coaching program is accelerated change, and if someone doesn't really want to do that, then coaching is
Mm.
not a viable proposition. Looking across what is now your portfolio of professional things, coaching,
Mm.
advisors, non-exec positions, do you find common themes now that perhaps touch all of those people, all of those situations? And what would they look like?
It's an interesting question, isn't it? And yes, on reflection, definitely yes, really. I mean, in the portfolio advisor roles where you're working alongside businesses or with businesses or on the boards of businesses, then they are businesses and they employ people and they have to deliver performance targets, profits, and all the rest of it. So the common things that I've, from my experience now, that seem to be prevalent are obviously finance, financial performance. So how and those businesses have had it. Have gone through difficult times, haven't they? COVID and then inflation latterly, albeit settling down, but still the remnants of those cost challenges. They're huge for lots of businesses and continue to be. So grappling with all those financial challenges and maintaining that ship on course and floating above the waterline can be very, very challenging. And that's true also of a startup. You've got to get the sales in and you've got to manage your money. And yet you want to grow into new markets and you've got to try and navigate how best to do that. So it's similar whether you're a big business or a small business. Um, and similarly on the coaching, some of those challenges can come through, and through that conversation, some assistance can be provided to navigate your way through some of those financial challenges, I feel. The other common theme that comes through, of course, is people. Every business and individuals are dependent on their own personalities and people within those businesses. So, getting the best out of people, I think, is the way I would term it. Is always comes to the top
One of
at
the
some point.
Yeah, one of the interesting dynamics of becoming a non-executive or an advisor across portfolio businesses is you're no longer the boss, are you? You're no longer the chief executive.
Absolutely,
How
yeah.
did you find the adjustment to that?
That is, you absolutely bob on the money there, aren't you, Graham? That is a big adjustment. And having worked with boards over a number of years within housing, and obviously realise the importance, and you know that boards should not get operational. So with all that history and experience, it's still and continues to be a challenge to make that step from being the leader who has all the resources available to them, and as you say, perhaps the boss. Although I wouldn't have instigated that stick very often in my career unless I had to. But I suppose that's down to style. But yeah, the I think you have to manage your own frustrations and work very hard on yourself to not cross the line and maintain that advisory role, non-operational, non-executive type role in your board functions and portfolio advisor roles, rather than jump in and almost tell individuals to do X, Y, Z, because
Yeah.
it's others that do, not you in a non-exec capacity.
And sort of extending that just a little bit, do you find that there is a combination of the formal, say the meeting arrangement, and then there's the informal where they're talking to you on the phone or email or privately, and I don't mean politically, I just mean for support and
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
informal piece.
Yeah, I
In
think
my
it's
experience,
almost.
that's almost, well, no, not almost. That is definitely as valuable as the formal meetings, and is
I
certainly
was just going to say, yeah,
do you
yeah,
find?
I think so. Yeah, I do, and I encourage it because there's formality around board arrangements, shall we say, and that's appropriate, and that needs to be maintained. And provided that that sort of distinctive line between I'm here to advise rather than to tell you what to do can be maintained, then I think that informality is very valuable to clients, and it's something I encourage. Um, so often I'll often say, you can ring me anytime, and I mean it, because those on the other side, on the executive side, it can be very difficult at times and very lonely. And a good non-exec will be available, I think, outside the boardroom, but maintain those sort of board disciplines.
Yeah,
Um,
I echo that. My experience is that if they need you, they need you, and they need you when they need you.
exactly.
It's
Yeah,
not to your timetable, it's to theirs. And the other
yeah,
aspect is if you're not willing to help them, if you're not willing to be available, then you're probably not really being the advisor and the support that's
yeah,
required. So
yeah.
I like
I did.
to feel that they can contact me and talk to me any
Yeah,
because then I feel as though I'm actually making the contribution that I'm supposed to be making.
yeah, exactly. And you feel as if you're adding the value which you sought to provide in the first place, and you're also building relationships, aren't you? You
Yeah,
know.
is that is you're reinforcing the point of them
Mm,
being
mm,
involved with you. That's absolutely.
mm, mm, mm.
So it's been about 2 years now, and I'm sensing that this is now your new normal. Yeah. And
Mm.
life has expanded to consume the time available, undoubtedly, as it always does. But how long did it take you? Can you sort of measure from the last day of working at the proper job and to the situation where you now feel completely comfortable and busy in the new job? How long do you think that transition?
Ooh, that's a very good question. I think it definitely took time. Um, and I would say just top of my head, 6 to 9 months probably, if I was honest.
Yeah,
And my reflections now are that I think as a leader of a business and a senior executive, then it tends to be 24/7. You don't switch off at weekends, and okay, you manage your time and you get the work-life balance to where you're comfortable and where it needs to be in those roles, and but then you operate in that mode for a number of years, so there's a habit formed, if you like. But the actual thinking and the responsibility, I suppose, it's the responsibility that you have released. So those behaviors that went with that responsibility don't just switch off on a personal level. So it took a while to, I suppose, almost relax is to just come down a bit and relax. I suppose, yeah, relax is an appropriate word, and channel that energy into different portals. It did take time, and on reflection, about 6 to 9 months. I think I'd be. I don't think, yeah, even though there was a build up to the step down, and there was a lot of thought to it, and there's a change of pace as you hit the date. But despite all that, I would say, yeah, there's an adjustment thereafter for sure.
So, if we look at the situation now, which is your new normal, what are the good bits about that, and perhaps what are the not so good bits about that?
Um, the good bits, the really good bits, are that you do what you want to do. That sounds extremely selfish, doesn't it? But you've geared yourself up now to spend your time, your available time on what you want to and you're interested in, almost rather than because you have to, because it was part of your responsibilities or otherwise. And I can't tell you how rewarding that is, and to the audience. It is hugely rewarding and it's less stressful. And I suppose that's a direct consequence because you're working on things that actually give you a lot of pleasure and you feel as if you're adding a lot of value, and you're using your time effectively. So somebody said to me, when they retired, the thing they enjoyed the most was the flexibility as well, so that obviously you can spend more leisure, you can go on more holidays if you so choose, than in a working scenario. And that brings us rewards as well. So it's the flexibility and just working on what you want. Sounds selfish, but it's not meant to. That you're working on what interests you, and that's very, very rewarding.
What are the not so good bits?
Oh, I don't think there aren't many, but I think what I miss the most, I have to be honest, is the people.
Yeah.
And the workplace brings with it a lot of people, even in small businesses, and you're in there or you're engaging with that business constantly. So you're developing relationships and stuff. And I suppose that's the bit I miss the most, and the networks and the supply chain. So you don't just go to a place of work, there's some spin-offs from work. Um, that suddenly, albeit over time, gradually wane. So that's another adjustment, I suppose. But you make relationships and you fill that void in a different way. But that's another learning is that some people use the term falling off a cliff, don't they? One day you're busy 9 till 5, if those were your hours, and the next day there's no one who rings you, when you retire. Well, you need to manage that transition. But even when you have managed it, the contacts and the relationships wane because you're not in that workplace anymore.
Yeah.
So that's just something I miss more than anything. Because we all like a bit of gossip as well, don't we? We're all human.
Ffrancon, it's been great chatting. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. If there's anybody out there who'd like to speak to you or contact you, where can they find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. My contact details are there. Message me on LinkedIn, and then I'll get back in touch. And it'd be great to hear from you.
Ffrancon Williams on LinkedIn. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ffrancon, again, and thank you everybody for listening. So that was it. That was the latest edition of the Coaching Conversation. Hope it did what I promised it would do. Hope it was useful. Hope you got something out of it that you can use for yourself. And hopefully it made you smile once or twice. If you want to find out more about our coaching services, you can find the details at theexecutivemindset.co.uk. If you want to reach out to me, my name's Graham Wiley, so it's gwiley@sagegreen.com. And if you really enjoyed the programme, please take a couple of minutes and give us a Google rating. That's it. Nothing more for me to say other than see you next time. Bye.